What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of A Thinking Man's Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Joseph PIRCHER. With me, as always, Tommy Stiles out on the West Coast. Tommy, how you doing?
Good, man. We're coming at you a little late this week, guys, but it is coming.
It is what it is. We are coming at you guys with some value and some knowledge. Sometimes it's not always going to be right on schedule. But one a week. At minimum, we do one a week. So today we're going to try and take a different perspective and a different approach on a topic that we've spent quite a bit of time talking about on this show over the past year or so now. And we're going to try and discuss the positives and the way to benefit from using social media. Tommy and I think, have both spent plenty of time kind of shitting on it and just in general not loving that it's part of what we do. And I think for some contrast, there are some negatives that are worth mentioning or discussing. But for the most part, I think we're going to talk about how people can utilize it to really leverage their business or just anything that you want to do online. So, Tommy, you're the man. Start it off.
Yeah, social media, especially in the bodybuilding industry, I should say the fitness industry, it gets a negative rap as you get older. Definitely you start to sound like an old head and start shitting on new things. So when I think about what social media, because for me, it's been a part of my bodybuilding pretty much the whole time as far as me competing. I started my Instagram in 2014 when I started bodybuilding. So it's gone the duration with me. YouTube, TikTok, YouTube came before Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff has its own, everything plays its own role. But I think I can look at social media, especially from an Instagram perspective and YouTube, and I can see more positives that I do negative if I look for them. But if you're only looking for the negatives, then that's all you're going to focus on. That's all you're going to find. So, for me, it was a great way to just find bodybuilders. Obviously, I knew the pros that were inspirations to me when I was in high school and that, but I didn't know anything about the national level. I didn't know anything about kind of the stepping stones you go through to work through the amateur and the NPC of how becoming a pro is even a thing. I just saw big bodybuilders and I was like, that's what I want to do. So being able to use those first few years, especially to find bigger amateurs who some of them might have been my age at that time. Like they'd been bodybuilding a lot longer at a higher level than me. I have people now that I've followed for almost a decade or 8, 6, 7, 8 years, just because they were maybe they were in a position that I wanted to get to at that time. Turner Riddle is one of my good friends. We talk almost daily. For me to now be friends with Turner, it started as Turner was competing at the national level pretty regularly, commenting in the Facebook groups that I was in. And, I found him that way. And I was like, dude's got a good work ethic, trains hard, big quads. So I latched onto that. And then, Cade Zook, I followed his journey because he was a bigger guy. Basically anybody who, I guess, gravitated towards Dante or towards Dusty is kind of who caught my eye in the early years. But my point with all that is, Instagram has that feature, the bookmark feature. You can bookmark posts. I have a library of bookmark posts dating back to whenever they made that a feature, just different things. And it's, maybe some guy made a good post that had a good caption about the actual in the trenches experience of what bodybuilding is, or how much food he was eating, or what his off season looked like. And he was able to, it was so simple. He was able to just write it in a caption. It wasn't, here's my spreadsheet, here's this. It was like, I ate the same thing every day for 7 months straight. I gagged on food. I did the same training split every day, every week for 7 months straight. So I think you can create your own world through your social media, but what you're consuming definitely dictates that. Now, if you're consuming only content about guys in the older generations who talk shit about bodybuilding, but they still are a part of it, and they made their whole name and living through bodybuilding, that will wear on you. That will make you think that that's how everyone feels about bodybuilding. And I think we all have different degrees of it, where we're like, especially the more time you get in, where, you know, I look down and I see a 20-year-old at my gym and the things he's doing and calling himself a bodybuilder. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? But also it's like, this is his perception of what bodybuilding is. It's completely different than mine. He's not trying to, you know, he has no interest in looking like Marcus Rule or even half as good as Marcus Rule. But at the end of the day, that's what his perception of bodybuilding is. So that would just be content that I wouldn't consume because it doesn't help me. I think the biggest thing I've learned to do is use social media as a tool to fuel me rather than always be taking away from my cup.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. That's one of the biggest tools or just perspectives I think that people can have and implement to immediately get a better experience from the time that we inevitably all spend on social media is customizing your timeline or your newsfeed. Like what you see is completely up to you. And I'll tell you this because we all are going to deal with this to some degree or some level. Um, but you know, there might be people that their posts bring you down, or just their online persona frustrates you or makes you feel negative in a way. I think we all experience this. But maybe you know the person in real life, and you're like, man, they're a good person, or whatever the case is. I just don't want to see the post. I mute people. Like if I feel like I, on a personal level, should be following a person, or they've supported me, or whatever the case is, you don't want to unfollow them because then I guess it feels like you're kind of kicking them to the curb. But muting people if they are not bringing value to what you're seeing or looking for, I don't think there's any harm in that. And most people are not going to notice. There might be some nutcases that notice, um, but other than that, that's a great way to use it, because then the time that you do spend on it, you come away from it feeling like there are takeaways or value from it. Like you said, the archive feature, the save feature, I have the same thing, but I took it a step further. I don't know if you did any of this, but there's different like blocks of what the post correlated to. So I have ones that were like mindset, where it's, you know, they were just audio for a minute or whatever it was on a reel or a video that just fired me up. Or like you said, training captions, how to training videos from different people that put out valuable content. Um, it should, it can be really an all encompassing knowledge base for whatever you're into, including bodybuilding. Like there's tons of people that put out tons of great information about nutrition, training, even the mindset aspect of it, the business side of it. If you're coaching, I think a big thing is trying to find, like you had mentioned this as a point, and I think it's an awesome point to call out for people to intentionally do so on social media. And that's finding people that are in a spot that you want to be in. I think a big thing in terms of reaching a certain level or acquiring a new level, something along those lines, you have to see it. It has to feel tangible and real. And it has to be, it first has to be clearly outlined in your mind, like what is my highest self that I'm shooting for. But then to take it a step further, if you can go find someone that's doing what you hope to do, they are kind of laying a blueprint out for you. I don't think it would be a bad idea to start noticing the moves that that person makes on social media, because you have to realize everyone that uses it for business is doing just that. They're using it for business. It's intentional. There are reasons that they're posting what they're posting. So if that person is having success with that in a way that you desire, it's a great place to start. Of course, you're going to want to put your own spin on it. And that's one of the big points of social media, is that people can immediately pick up on authenticity. But I don't think it hurts to try to pull from people that inspire you, or people that are where you want to be.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it could serve as motivation. It could serve as just maybe learning lessons along the way, especially with bodybuilding, because of how long it takes to maybe start to see some of the fruits of your labor pay off in the early years. You know, that's what I think about when I look back at my pictures and my journey, so to speak, is like, man, the first 6 years I didn't really see where I was going. I just was trying to do what I was supposed to do every day. And, you know, be a dude in his 20s trying to figure out life, make enough money. Yeah, I'm on my own. I've been on my own anyway at that point, but trying to do life shit too, and mature and grow that way, while also always putting bodybuilding first, and like always being obsessed with becoming a better bodybuilder and eventually becoming a coach in business. And, you know, now the following is, like you said, motivation stuff, mindset stuff, success stuff, people that are like, I like that stuff. That stuff, personal development has always been a thing I'm very much interested in. And, you know, your atmosphere of the people around you dictates how far you'll go, but also the atmosphere of what you're consuming dictates how far you'll go in anything. So I think, you know, cleaning up what your consumption is, it can help you. It could be a tool for launching you forward if you're kind of in a rut. But, you know, if you're in bodybuilding and you want to get into the competitive scene, or you're in the competitive scene, look for the accounts that are putting out the most value. Now, I follow a bulk of the pros. Pros still inspire me. I talk to pros. I know pros. I've trained with pros. But also keep in mind, like, if you're doing your first show, they're just inspiration for you. They're nothing more than that. They can't be what you're basing your first show results on, or your look, or anything like that. Like, that's why, like, I put out a post showing my journey in reverse last week, where I showed a picture from each year, but I did it to where the most current was first, and you got to swipe to see everything. You have to watch the journeys in reverse. You know, people will see me or see somebody who's been doing this a long time. If you've been doing this a long time, you have some sort of progress, even though, you know, I never feel like I'm where I want to be. That's just the nature of the beast. But, oh, how do I get my delts like yours? Like, why aren't my delts? It's like, just time and effort, man. You got more years ahead of you till you start to see that. But I couldn't see it for the first 6 years either. That's just how it goes. Like, you have to love wanting to get better. You have to love training. You have to love eating the food. You have to love making your life kind of centered around bodybuilding. And then somewhere along the way, it's just like, okay, I can start to see maybe the semblance of a physique, maybe. And then, but it's just there's never this aha moment where it's just like, I'm there, it's it. This is what I wanted to create. Now I can go do something else. If you have found that, then you're at a place I have never gotten to, even for 10 minutes of my life. So I think follow accounts that are people putting out value. And that's anybody who's coached me in business or given me advice on how to use social media to leverage my business. The word value always comes up. Provide value.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who's following everything that goes viral, chances are it's not helping you in any way, shape, or form, other than maybe making you laugh, which you should follow stuff that makes you laugh. That's a tool. But at the same time, like, I can honestly say I have used my social media experience to make me better because of the accounts I followed, the posts I've booked. You know, I have numerous dynamic warm-ups and PT exercise stuff that I found through social media from different accounts over the years. Like, it really is it is a library. Imagine going to a library when you're a kid and you have all these books and you can choose one and learn what that book has to offer. That's what social media is. You just have to make sure you don't get stuck into like the viral or the sex appeal or the shit that really doesn't provide a ton of value for you. So, you know, anybody looking to get into coaching, I don't know how to post. I don't know, like, no one held my hand. There was no seminar on how to make posts. I just started posting. Nobody taught me how to talk to a camera. I just talked to a camera. Like, I don't know. It's just part of where the world is. And if you're one of those people that can't adapt to the changes that are happening, you will get left behind. And that's just the way it goes. I don't know how to put it any other more direct way than that. If you cannot adapt to the way the world is becoming video, I mean, we record this podcast every week. We did that to, one, provide value, but two, to leverage our businesses and help us grow.
Yeah, the point about value, that was the biggest takeaway when you reached out to Scott McNally about the thought of us having a podcast to get his opinion on it.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest takeaway that I got from what he said to you. And it was, maybe down the road, this will be the case, but for the most part, people are not going to care about you individually. They're going to care that you provide them value. And I feel like that was kind of our, it's a corny phrase, but it was kind of our mission statement from the jump, was to always bring a value to the listener, really with the thought of like, hey, this is some type of experience or knowledge or something that we're going to provide to you that we discovered along our way that should help you be a better bodybuilder or coach or athlete or whatever the case is. And I think in terms, bringing this back around to the topic of the episode, in terms of social media, I think, we're doing this on a long form for a podcast, but that should still be the same thought on social media. That's how I try thinking about it. Not so much what do people want to see, or what's this most popular trend? What are these funny reels where you lip sync funny audio and all this stuff? Like, there's a place for that, and it can show a different side of you. But you should really be thinking in terms of bringing value and showcasing what you know and what you offer. Like if you're a coach or whatever the case is, social media is a godsend for anyone that doesn't work in the corporate world or wants to work for themselves, whether they're selling a product, a service, whatever the case is. It is limitless free marketing. There's never been a time like this. There's never been a business model or a platform like this before. In every other field, in every other era of humanity, you had to pay for advertising, for marketing. And in certain situations, it wouldn't even be what you wanted or where you wanted it or when you wanted it to be shown. Now, all of it is in your hands. You could literally post 10 times a day if you wanted to and reach hundreds of thousands of people. So when I hear people that say that they want to be a coach, or I don't take it disrespectfully, but it's happened where I have people in the gym or whatever, where they're like, man, you're so lucky that you're a coach. And it's like, I get what you're saying, but also it's like, man, there's a level of effort that goes into this. Like, I'm not comfortable in front of a camera naturally, or I don't want to sit in front of a window to get natural lighting in front of this one spot and film 1 minute reels for 5 hours. Literally, that's what it comes down to. So, it can wear thin, where this is like when we talk about getting frustrated of having to produce this content and all this different stuff. But really, if you want to have a positive perspective on it, you should be looking at it like it is an endless opportunity to showcase why someone should hire you. And the more that people lean into that and think about that, if the goal is coaching or selling a business or a service, I think that will help.
Yeah. Or even if you're, in the corporate world and you want to change your situation, like, you can develop a pretty good side hustle and eventually have enough courage and be set up to take that side hustle and make it your main hustle and leave that job, but you just have to start. But when I think positives of social media, like, the longer you're in bodybuilding, your circle around you probably gets smaller in your immediate circle, because unless you're just genetically gifted and you don't have to give a ton of effort, like, you're going to have to become obsessed and it's going to have to become your life. And as I was going through my 20s, a lot of people that I was close with were getting married, going on to have kids, buying houses, and I was trying to be the best bodybuilder I can be. And then that eventually took me from where I grew up out to the West Coast to Arizona to move to a more affluent area to afford coaching and personal training. Like the rates people pay here is double what they'll pay in where I'm from in Michigan. And that's something I had a conversation with somebody about, scaling their coaching business the other day. Was you got to move to an area. If you don't live in an area that's like kind of got some dispendable income, it's going to be a lot harder for you. If you're trying to do it in your local hometown where there's just one gym and everybody knows your name, like, yeah, you probably got a lot of business, but I don't know how far you're going to be able to scale that model. You need to be in an area where there's a lot of industries and a lot of high paying jobs, and people are willing to pay a good chunk of change for their coaching and for their personal training, and be able to pay more each year because they're in positions to where inflation helps them too. But your circle's dwindling as you get more obsessed with bodybuilding in the area you're in. Social media, a lot of my closest friends I met through social media, because like bodybuilders, you kind of, it's a respect game. You see a guy and you know that he's probably given up relationships, jobs. He's had maybe some tension with his family over the years because he just keeps leaning more and more into this thing. And as a family, they're like, this is crazy. What do you mean you're not eating on the hot? Like, it's family Thanksgiving turkey. You can't eat it? Like, no. So your social media connections and friends start to become pretty close people. Prime example, you and I have never met in the human form, and we record a podcast every single week and talk pretty much every day. I don't have anybody in my day-to-day, outside of the few close people I have. Like, I don't like seeing people every day. I avoid that. So social media becomes a tool that can provide opportunities if you put enough into it, where it's like, hey man, you want to start a podcast? Let's do this, this, and this. Here we are almost a year later, and we've stuck to what we said, but I didn't have anybody that I'm close enough with or that I could pitch that to local to me in Arizona. It just happened that you and I crossed. And then same thing, like I would have never known about Dusty Hanshaw without social media, following him. And coaching is a lot different now, to where it's a lot easier to find a coach, I would say. I think even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like at least my perspective of was it, I thought you had to be a certain level of caliber to like work with somebody of that caliber.
It felt like that initial email to a coach back in the day was like a tryout.
Yeah.
You're like, here's everything that I know, here's everything that I'm doing, and then here's the best set of pictures I can pull together.
Yeah, no, that was my perception of it. Like I was shocked
because there wasn't many, man, and all the guys that you were reaching out to, they had a name. It's like, fuck, man, like you could get Chris Aceto, you could try to get Chad, you could try to get whoever. Like there was only, like, it was like, I remember sending an email to Matt Porter and it literally felt like a tryout.
Yeah. And you look at yourself every day and you're like, well, this is the guy I see him posting. Why the hell would he take me?
Right.
And then, obviously you learn more about it. And, but the point of all that was like the opportunities to find the people I've found outside of my first coach, who I found, he had the biggest arms in the gym and I heard he worked with competitors. So I chose him. Everybody else has been via social media. Like I saw their account, scoped them out, sent the initial email, boom. And then now, I mean, you can't scroll your feed without seeing someone who's a coach. So it does open opportunities for you if you are leveraging it in the right way, which to me is positive. I would not have I don't even like to say notoriety, but no one would know my name without social media. I'm not kicking ass on pro caliber or pro qualifier stages. I'm not a pro. I'm not viral because I deadlifted 1,000 pounds while eating gummy bears. So, there's just different avenues, different tunnels, different, branches of the tree, and social media you know, we have the power with this thing in our hand to make thousands of dollars a day if we utilize it. And it's just, you can, some of the guys that are older that didn't have those opportunities and now kind of feel like they're getting left behind. And trust me, that's how I feel with TikTok. Like, I'm not on TikTok. I tried to get into it, and I understand how those guys feel about social media in general, because I'm at that point where there's new platforms coming out and there's kids 10 years younger than me that it seems like every kid that's in his early 20s knows how to edit, like way better than me. They didn't have flip phones. Like, you know, they didn't filming the training wasn't even a thing until like 2015 or 2016, when I had a phone that would even produce some sort of quality of filming. So
my God, that TI-84 calculator was some advanced shit for us back in the day.
Yeah, you could type, you could write
whatever that was. I definitely got that wrong, but you know what I was talking about.
Yeah, I remember when my school ponied up and got TI-89s for everybody. It was
big year. Like the Terminator version.
Yeah. So point of that rant was just there are opportunities that can present themselves. There are connections. It's a network. It's a social media network, and networking can help you advance your position in life, and it can help you as a bodybuilder too. Aligning with the right people. I'm not saying as like the whole you're a team type thing. I don't really push that, but you just find people who like you relate to, that like, man, you've quit jobs because of bodybuilding. Me too. You've skipped family dinners because of bodybuilding. Me too. Like, you get it. Like, you walk the same walk as I do, and it's not as abnormal as it seems in my area.
I'll tell you this: when I am in a mode, in my best mode in terms of how my perspective is towards social media and the bodybuilding scene on social media, I refer to it and think of it like a community. Like, we all are not living in the same hometown or going to the same gym. We are not physically with each other. And so in all of our individual environments, you might be just like a total outsider in your own environment. Like the gym that you go to or whatever the case was. A lot of the times, you know, around where I grew up, like I'd go in getting ready for a show or fresh off a show with a spray tan. Like, you're the only guy in the gym that looks that way or is doing this stuff. But then I'd hop on Instagram, put up my progress photos, and then it starts a conversation with 15 other guys that I respect their bodybuilding opinion. So, and that's the case. So like, we're making that talk like we're across the country from each other, and we have this relationship really through that sparked through social media. But I'm noticing too, even locally, it can open doors for you, even to the people that locally you weren't aware of or didn't know of. Like, a lot of times if I have guys that come up to me in the gym or whatever the case is, the first thing is like, well, what's your IG, what's your Instagram? And it's a great way to connect with people, because then right away it's like you're showing this person, hey, I'm interested in whatever you have going on, your training, whatever the case is. And then that's how you develop relationships can and oftentimes lead to business, because let's face it, a lot of us, there's thousands of us that are coaches that generally are working with a lot of the same information. All of the same information is available to everyone. So then it comes down to like, who do you want to do this with? Who do you enjoy communicating with? Who do you want to have this relationship with, essentially? So it's a good opportunity to open the doors even locally, I think, not even just remotely, because and then especially, and this isn't a knock on anybody, this is just how it is, but a lot of times you'll get people that will see you locally or see you in the gym, and they wouldn't even say something in person, but then they'll come find you on Instagram and send you a message. So it's it's a valuable tool, and I feel better about all of it when I try to take this positive perspective, instead of being, these fucking kids, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. It's like, no, I get to do this. Like, this has given me an unlimited ceiling on my business. So yeah.
I think if you're on social media and you have a, you know, a negative taste in your mouth in that moment, you need to change the channel. Whatever you're seeing needs to mute it, unfollow it, remove yourself from it, whatever. Like, get off. Maybe that's your cue on that moment to get off the phone and go do something else, because I think it creates chaos in your brain, and it creates, I don't even look at it as like a negative when it comes to, like, they say you shouldn't compare yourself to others. Like, I do that all the time. That's how would I have gotten this far if I wasn't trying to be better, because I was comparing myself to people I was following or people that were where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a coach to make my own bodybuilding better. Obviously, I like coaching. I like creating my own revenue. I like working with people and helping people get to their goals. But the main driver was, I realized for the first 4 years of bodybuilding how fucking hard it was to push my off-season food while being a firefighter. Now, I got days off because I work 24-hour shifts, but the days that I was working, like, good luck. I might not eat for 10 hours. And I didn't want to, I had the desire to, I was following guys who'd made their own way to make themselves better bodybuilders. And that seed was planted in my head. Like, these guys have become exponentially better since they left whatever job they were working or punching the clock at. 100%. I'm at an age and a time in my life where I can do that. Now, you don't have to take this as like you have to work for yourself to be a good bodybuilder. I have awesome dudes who work Monday through Friday. I have dudes who work 7 days a week. Females too, who make it happen. You can make any situation and play that hand. But for me, I saw an opportunity because of social media, and I was encouraged to, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. So that ties in with the theme of the podcast, is maybe social media gives you that courage to take the leap you would have never taken without seeing others do it. Like, half the battle,
100%, like both of us.
Yeah. Half the battle is like seeing, you know, me moving to Arizona was just like, it'll either work or it won't. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, you figure it out.
Yeah. And I think, like, that point about, because I think a lot of people that do listen have at least some interest in coaching. It seems like a lot of people ask questions about that, or even if you are just a bodybuilder, man, I tell a lot of my guys all the time, even if you are just working a regular 9 to 5 job and, you know, you have some knowledge, you have a physique, that puts you ahead of like tons of people, a huge percentage of the average person. So I just always felt like if you're someone that's bodybuilding, whether it's competitive or not, but you're putting effort into changing your physique and it's a lifestyle for you, I always felt like most of those people could take on coaching as a side hustle to whatever degree they can manage or whatever they felt comfortable with, and to what extent they're comfortable with. Like, I'm not saying if you're a lifestyle, your lifestyle bodybuilding, I'm not telling you that you're going to take on pro level competitors. No, but there is always going to be people that are underneath you that you can help pull up. And then that helps with some of these costs that are associated with bodybuilding. Tommy and I were just talking about it off air. It's fucking expensive to bodybuild, and the further you want to go and the higher of a level that you want to achieve, the more expenses the more expensive it becomes. And take from that what you will, but it is what it is. You're going to eat more food. You're going to take more drugs. Those are two huge costs. And so if that is the case, if there is even any interest at all, you should be flooding social media with it. Like, I have several guys that work a full-time job and they're all in on bodybuilding and they want to coach, and it's like they never post on Instagram. And when I ask them about it, it's like, I'm like, hey man, what's going on? Like, it begins and ends with you garnering attention for your service online. So what's going on? And it's like, oh, well, you know, I want to wait until I lose this 30 pounds, or I want to wait until my arms are bigger, or, you know, I want to wait until this or that. I get it completely. I waited way longer than all of you guys to try to promote myself and put myself out there. And so I'm trying to relay that to you now. Had I started and just gone all in on social media at 21, that was at a time Instagram was just organically blowing up. I would be in a much different place right now. Now, that's not to say I'm not happy with where I am. I am, of course, but telling you guys, like, get ahead of it. Like, your story is worth telling. It's not the end product, it's the story itself. Like you were saying before, Tommy, we followed guys for 10 years. We followed Nick Walker when he was a squirt nobody, losing team shows. And then now all of a sudden he's one of the premier open bodybuilder competitors of the last decade. Like, I followed him from the jump. Like, I have followed that all along. And had he waited until he was Nick Walker, he wouldn't have people as drawn into him, because you draw people in with the story. And again, I am one of these people that never did that myself. And that's why I'm trying to relay this to anybody that's listening that hopes to, at some point, coach or even has a slight interest in it. Just start telling people why you do what you do online. That's where it can start. I had a big mental limitation about posting because I just felt like, man, I'm not a pro. I'm not walking around at 300 pounds. I'm not helping guys win the Olympia. Who am I to speak like an authority online? And it wasn't until I thought about it in terms of just sharing my process. Here is what I'm doing with bodybuilding. Here's why I'm doing it. If you take value from this or you think this is interesting, great. I'm not telling you that this is how you have to do it. I'm just telling you this is what I do and why. And I think just that alone will start to build the story for people, that even if it is you're getting ready for your first show or you don't feel like your arms are big enough or whatever the case is, guess what? When your arms grow and 4 years down the line, people see you with 20-inch arms, they're going to want to know what the fuck you did, because they were bought in from the beginning. They were bought in when you had the skinny arms. So I would just implore anybody that wants to coach, it begins and ends with consistency online. Whatever you set out to do online, it needs to be consistent. If you're going to tell yourself you're going to post 3 times a week, that's great. That's better than nothing. But do that then. If you're going to do 5 times a week, great. But don't do 5 for 2 weeks and then none for a month. So I think all of those are good takeaways. Because that's just, if I was talking to myself at 21, that's how I would speak to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, even if you don't have the desire to post and to change your situation, I think the consumption of things that are positive that help you can go a long way in making your experience a much more favorable one. And
for sure.
I mean, just the, you do a show, you meet people there, maybe you didn't know them before, you start following them, and then your journeys now become like intertwined. I mean, I can't tell you how many guys that I found early who maybe they had already been in bodybuilding and they were kind of ushering me in, and they're either still going or they're completely retired and gone now, or guys who I found after I had already been in it, and guys or girls, and they might be where I was 3 years earlier, so they're chipping away, coming up the ranks, or they've already got out of it. A lot of people, like, I've watched people come in before me and leave. I've watched people come in same time as me and leave. I've watched people come in after me and leave. That's what we talk about, like bodybuilding for any division, or even if you're just a lifestyle person wanting to build your body, it just requires consistent application of discipline over time. And that's where you really start to see the fruits of your labor. But that initial starting point is kind of like you're not going to see much, and you just have to be okay with that. That's why finding posts that, I don't want to follow someone who, if I go to their page, their whole grid is just selfies. That does nothing for me. Like, you might have an awesome
Right. Well,
that's
what we were talking about earlier.
Me.
Where is the value there as a follower of yours? Like, where is the value? Like, I think the big thing is just like, even if you're not going to coach, if the whole thing is like from a fitness standpoint, there should be some value to it. Otherwise, like we were talking about before we started filming, you kind of wind up just looking wildly narcissistic online.
Yeah, which is definitely a thing. It's also, you know, I always have posted training videos because, like,
Yeah,
I'm a visual learner. So I feel if there's others that are visual learners, they can benefit from that. And at the end of the
100%.
day, I just like posting training videos. I fucking hate taking selfies. I think it's the most awkward, weirdest thing ever. I never know how to do it. So there's probably like 4 on my page if you look through the whole thing. Like I don't do selfies.
Yeah, yeah,
Some people take a selfie every 2 hours of their day, every day. And like, bravo, that's your thing. That's your thing. But like, I don't know how to do it.
yeah. But they don't know how to train either.
Yeah, you got to find your strengths, find your niche, figure out, what maybe, like for me, coaching has been what helped me. Let me relay that to the people now, because one thing I constantly remind myself of due to the clients I work with is that what's common sense to me isn't to them, because they haven't been doing it for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. Like they haven't been, this is, especially with lifestyle people, this could be completely new. So I can't assume that everyone needs to know to salt their food. To me, it's been like, man, if you're not using salt, what are you, born on a different planet? But there are people who they've consumed media channels that have told them salt's the devil and not to do it. So you have to constantly be reminding yourself of the audience that you're putting out information to.
Yeah. What do you think? You have anything else that we didn't touch on?
Not really. I mean, it's a broad,
Or any
diverse
any
topic.
main takeaways that like you wanted to touch on that we didn't?
Um, I don't know. I think I just wanted to like
Yeah.
give a different spin
Yeah.
for how I, because all you're going to hear mostly from everybody is the negatives of social media. So I think if being able to share our stories of how, like, I can name a lot of occurrences where social media, my presence on it, and the things I was consuming helped me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I think that's what we talked about wanting to do with this episode. And I think we did. I think there is going to be a lot of positive takeaways that maybe are common sense to people, but even if there's one person that's listening that never thought to archive posts and come back to them as a sense of motivation or for training tutorials or any of these things, like you can kind of create your own little value library out of Instagram. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think that's a good spot to end it. So for Tommy Stiles, I'm Joseph PIRCHER. This was a Thinking Man's podcast. Until next time, guys, we are